There is a moment that almost every person learning English knows. You do not have to think hard to remember it. Maybe it happened to you last week. Maybe it happened yesterday. You are in a situation where English is necessary. It could be a meeting at work, a tourist asking for directions on the street, a video call with someone from another country. And then it happens. Your brain slows down. Your mouth gets tight. Your chest feels a little heavier than usual. You know the words. You have studied them. You have seen them written on a page, heard them in a classroom, maybe even typed them correctly in an exercise. But when the moment arrives, when the real moment arrives, nothing comes out. Not slow English, not broken English. Nothing. Just a frozen silence that feels like it lasts forever, even if it is only 3 seconds. If this has happened to you, I want you to hear something important, and I mean this sincerely. This is not a sign that your English is broken. This is not a sign that you are not smart, not disciplined, not talented enough. It means one thing and one thing only. You have been training the wrong skill. You have been training your eyes and your ears. But nobody ever trained your mouth. Today, we are going to change that. Because there is a technique, a specific way of listening, that does not just help you understand English. It installs English directly into the part of your brain that speaks without asking for permission. And by the end of this episode, you are going to know exactly what it is, how it works, and what to do with it today. Stay with me here. Let me ask you something honest. How many years have you been studying English? 1 year? 3 years? Maybe 5 or more? And in all those years, how much time did you spend reading, doing exercises, watching videos, memorizing vocabulary, completing grammar worksheets? A lot of time, maybe hundreds of hours. Now answer this. How much of that time did you spend actually speaking out loud? Not in a classroom, not with a teacher correcting every word, but in a real situation, with real pressure, with real stakes. For most people, that second number is very small. And this is the root of everything. Not a lack of intelligence, not a lack of effort, a mismatch between the skill that was trained and the skill that speaking actually requires. Think about this for a second. Imagine someone who wants to learn how to swim. They buy every book about swimming. They study the mechanics of each stroke. They watch videos of Olympic swimmers. They understand perfectly the technique of breathing, the position of the arms, the angle of the kick. They know swimming theory better than most coaches. Now they jump into the pool. What happens? They sink. Because reading about swimming is not swimming. Understanding swimming is not swimming. Swimming is swimming, and it only happens in the water, with the body, with repetition, with real movement. English fluency works the same way. What many language specialists observe is that understanding a language and producing a language are two separate skills that live in different parts of how your brain works. You can develop one without the other. And that is exactly what most conventional methods do. They train comprehension, and only comprehension. Reading, listening, translating, memorizing. All of that is real work. None of that is wasted. But none of that trains your mouth. Think about that for a second. It is like a musician who only ever reads sheet music but never touches the instrument. After years of study, they can look at a complex composition and understand every note, but sit them in front of a piano and ask them to play, and their hands do not know what to do. The gap is not knowledge. The gap is practice of production. The gap is the physical habit that only forms when you actually move. What many educators who work with language acquisition observe is that what we call fluency, that feeling of speaking without thinking, is not a level of knowledge. It is a physical habit. It is your mouth, your breath, your rhythm, your voice, responding automatically to what you hear without waiting for your conscious mind to give permission. And that habit does not form by understanding more. It forms by doing more, by producing more, by activating the voice, out loud, in real conditions, consistently. The method that most schools use was designed to help you pass tests, and in that mission, it works. But the experience of many people who have genuinely developed fluency suggests something different. Tests and conversation are not the same thing. Tests give you time. Conversation does not wait. And if your training never included the speed, the pressure, the physical act of producing language in real time, then that pressure will always feel new, always feel hard, always freeze you. The reframe I want you to carry from this moment forward is simple. The problem is not you. The problem is what you were trained to do. And now, we are going to train something different. Let me tell you about a moment I still remember clearly. I was in an airport. This was a few years ago, during a trip. I had studied English for a long time. I understood movies. I read articles. I followed conversations when people spoke slowly. I felt okay about my English, in the abstract, in theory, in the comfortable privacy of my own study. And then, a man approached me. He was looking for information about a gate. He asked me a simple question. Simple. I had heard that structure 100 times. I knew what he was asking, and I opened my mouth. And what came out was not English. It was a sound, a hesitation, a kind of noise that was not a word. I pointed in a direction. I still do not know if it was even the right direction. And he walked away looking a little confused. I stood there for a moment, feeling something that is hard to describe. Not embarrassment exactly, more like a specific kind of defeat, the kind you feel when you worked hard at something and it still did not work when it mattered. That feeling was not new. I had felt it before, in a meeting, in a phone call, in a moment where I had the words in my head, but they would not leave my mouth fast enough. It felt like a door that I could see perfectly through but could not open. And here is where everything changes. What I noticed, and this took time, I am not pretending it was instant, was that the moments when English came out more naturally were not the moments after I had studied more. They were the moments after I had listened differently, specifically after I'd been in contact with spoken English in a very particular way. Not passive listening, not background noise, something more active, something that involved my body, my mouth, my breath. I would hear a sentence, and instead of just receiving it, I would let it go through me, repeat it quietly, feel the rhythm of it in my own mouth, not translating, not analyzing, just absorbing, and then echoing. At first it felt strange. Actually, no, not strange, uncomfortable. Because it felt slow, it felt like I was not learning fast enough, not doing enough. But over time, with weeks of this, not days, I started to notice something different. In real situations, English started to arrive faster. Not perfectly, not fluently in some movie version of fluency, but faster, more automatic, like the door was a little less stuck than before. That is what I want to show you today. Not a promise, a process, a specific way to listen that trains your mouth, not just your ears. Before I show you this, I want you to understand something important. What I am about to describe is not complicated. It does not require a partner. It does not require a course. It does not require hours every day. What it requires is intention, a shift in how you approach listening, a shift from passive reception to active absorption. It is called the absorption loop, and it has 3 parts: absorb, echo, and own. The first part is absorb. This is the way you listen. Not to understand every word. That is not the goal here. The goal is to receive the sound of the language, the rhythm, the melody, the way words connect to each other in real spoken English. What many people who develop fluency describe is that spoken English sounds like music before it sounds like meaning. And your ear needs to get used to that music before your mouth can reproduce it. Here is how to practice absorb. Choose a short piece of audio, 30 seconds to 2 minutes maximum. Not a lecture, not a documentary, something conversational, a podcast clip, an interview, a short story told by a real person in natural speech. Listen to it once without stopping. Do not look at the transcript. Do not pause to check vocabulary. Just receive it. Let the sound wash through you. This is not passive listening. You are paying attention, but you are paying attention to the sound itself, not hunting for meaning word by word. Do this twice, 3 times if the content is dense. Each time, something different will register. A word, a rhythm, a phrase that suddenly locks into focus. That is absorb. Pause for a second here, because this is important. The second part is echo. Echo is where the mouth begins to learn. After you have listened 2 or 3 times, play the audio again, but this time speak out loud at the same time. Not exactly like the speaker, not perfectly synchronized. Just follow the sound with your own voice, quietly at first if you need to, but out loud. This technique, which many language teachers call shadowing, is not about getting every word right. It is about training your mouth to move in the patterns of English, the way a dancer shadows a choreographer before learning the steps alone. You are not memorizing. You are installing. Your lips, your tongue, your breath. They are beginning to learn what English feels like to produce, not just to receive. Try it with something simple. A sentence like, "I've been working on this for a while now, and honestly, it's starting to feel a lot more natural." Say it out loud, not in your head. Out loud. Notice how your mouth has to move. Notice the rhythm, the contraction, the way honestly connects to it's. That physical experience, the experience of your own voice producing that rhythm, is doing something that reading never does. It is creating a physical memory, a pattern that your mouth can access without asking your brain for permission. Now, let me slow down for a moment before the third part, because the third part is the one that changes everything. The third part is own. Own is the transition from imitation to expression. After you have absorbed the sound and echoed the rhythm, you take one element from what you heard, one phrase, one structure, one expression, and you use it to say something true about your own life, not the speaker's life. Yours. If the audio said, "I've been working on this for a while now," you say, "I've been learning English for a while now." Or, "I've been thinking about this for a long time." The structure is borrowed. The content is yours. And this moment, this small act of personalizing, is where language stops being something you studied and starts being something you possess. This is how language becomes automatic, not by memorizing more, by owning what you already have, by taking a structure that lived in someone else's mouth and moving it into yours. What many specialists in language acquisition observe is that we do not speak in isolated words. We speak in chunks, in patterns, in phrases that fire together because they have been used together enough times to become one unit. The absorption loop builds those units. One short audio, one echoed repetition, one personal ownership at a time. If you do this every day with short pieces of content consistently over weeks and months, you will notice that English starts to arrive before you ask for it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but earlier and more often than before. Now let us talk about where this fits in your real life. Because I know you are busy. I know you have work and family and 1,000 things that matter more than English on most mornings. And I am not asking you to reorganize your day. I'm asking for 30 minutes, broken into 3 small moments that you probably already have. Imagine it is 7 in the morning. Before you check your phone, before the news, before the notifications, before the day starts pulling you in every direction, you have 5 minutes. Put on a short audio clip, something conversational, something you find genuinely interesting. Listen once, then listen again and echo out loud, quietly, while the audio plays. That is it. 5 minutes. The reason this moment works is that your mind is not yet flooded with information. It is open, receptive, ready to absorb. And the first thing it absorbs sets a tone for the rest of the day. Now, imagine the middle of your day. A commute, a walk to get coffee, a moment in line. You have 10 minutes that usually go to passive scrolling. Take 2 of those minutes and do this. Play one short sentence or phrase from something you heard earlier. Play it once. Repeat it out loud, quietly, into your breath, so only you can hear it. Then use that structure to say one thing about your day. "I've been feeling pretty tired this week. I'm actually looking forward to this afternoon." One sentence, your voice, your truth, in English. This is the own step happening in the wild, in the middle of your real life, without a classroom, without a teacher. And at night, 15 to 20 minutes, and no more than that. This is where the deeper practice happens. Choose a slightly longer clip, 2 to 3 minutes of real spoken English. Go through the full absorption loop. Absorb, echo, own. Then before you go to sleep, Take 60 seconds to ask yourself 3 questions. In English, out loud. What phrase did I absorb today? What did I echo? What did I own? You do not need to answer perfectly. You just need to hear your own voice speak English one more time before your mind goes quiet. What many educators who study habit formation observe is that connecting a new practice to something already in your routine, your morning alarm, your daily commute, your moment before sleep, makes the habit stick in ways that scheduling a study session often does not. You are not adding English to your life. You are weaving it into what already happens. There will be days when you want to skip this. That is normal. That is not weakness. That is being human with a full life and competing priorities. I want you to hear this clearly. Missing one day does not break the habit. What breaks the habit is the guilt that comes after missing one day, which turns into missing a week, which turns into telling yourself you are someone who cannot do this. You are not that person. You are someone who had a busy Tuesday and came back on Wednesday. That is the whole story. Now let me talk about something that nobody warns you about when you start this process, and it is the thing that stops more people than lack of time, more than lack of resources, more than any method question. It is the feeling that nothing is happening. You will have days, and I want you to expect this, where you go through the practice and feel like you made zero progress. You did the absorption loop. You echoed the audio. You used the phrase in a sentence. And at the end, you feel the same. Your English does not feel faster. Your confidence does not feel higher. The door still feels stuck. I know this feeling, and I want you to know something. Those days are not wasted. What many people who develop real fluency report is that progress in language learning is invisible before it is visible. It is happening underneath, in the physical patterns forming in your mouth, in the sounds your ear is beginning to recognize automatically, in the rhythm your breath is starting to follow without instruction. The work is being done. You just cannot see it yet. It is exactly like going to the gym. You lift the weight, you go home. You do not look different. But something happened at the cellular level. The muscle received a signal, and over enough repetitions, over enough days, the change becomes visible. And when it becomes visible, it happens fast. Are you a little better today than you were yesterday? That is the only question that matters. Not better than someone else. Not better than that person you know who seems to speak English effortlessly. Not better than a native speaker. Better than the version of you who started this week. That comparison, that small, incremental, private measurement, is what builds real fluency. Because fluency is not a destination you arrive at, it is a direction you keep moving in. Let me be honest with you here. There is something I want to say about motivation, because the title of this episode mentions it. And I want to say it carefully without pretending it is something it is not. You may have heard of Elon Musk. What is publicly known about his life is that he was born in South Africa. English was not a natural, easy language for him. It was something he had to inhabit, to build, to make his own over years of exposure and practice. What I find worth reflecting on, not as a formula, but as a perspective, is this. He did not wait until he felt ready. He exposed himself to the language, to the environment, to the real situations where the language mattered, before he was comfortable, before he was fluent, before he had permission to feel confident. The discomfort was part of the process, not a sign that the process was not working. That principle, exposure before comfort, is not unique to him. It is what many people who have developed fluency describe when they look back at their own journey. The fluency did not come before the discomfort. The fluency came because of the willingness to go through the discomfort long enough for the language to settle in. Think about that for a second. You do not need to be extraordinary to do this. You do not need unusual talent. You need a short audio clip. You need your voice. You need to show up tomorrow morning for 5 minutes before you check your phone, and then the next day, and the next. Not because every day will feel like progress, but because consistency is the only thing that turns exposure into fluency. The people who speak without thinking did not get there by thinking more. They got there by practicing the act of not thinking until the language moved faster than the thought. And here is where everything lands. So right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not after you find the perfect audio, not after you feel ready, Right now, after this episode ends, I want you to do one small thing. Say this sentence out loud with your real voice in the room where you are sitting or standing right now. I am learning to speak English, and every time I open my mouth, I get a little better. Say it slowly. Say it clearly. Say it loud enough that you can hear yourself, not in your head, out loud. Because that sentence is not just practice, it is a declaration. It is you telling your brain and your body that this voice belongs to you too. That English is not something that belongs to other people, to natives, to someone more prepared than you. It belongs to you. You are building it right now. You have been building it through this whole episode, and you will keep building it with the absorption loop. 5 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the middle of your day, 15 minutes at night. I really want you to hear this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too old, too busy, or too far from fluency to change how you speak. You are exactly where everyone starts. The only difference between where you are and where you want to be is time and repetition. And you have just taken the first step. Stay with me here, because your progress does not end with this episode. Click on the next video we selected for you, and we will keep going together. I will see you there.